We are It's Just a Hill, a cycling club that promotes inclusion, judgment-free, with no gatekeepers. Focused on creating content from behind the handlebars to in the studio, It's Just a Hill is producing videos and podcasts to spread the message that cycling is for everyone. We are focused on reminding everyone that riding your bike can help you overcome any obstacle, because after all, it's just a hill. Hello and welcome to another episode of the It's Just a Hill Cycling Podcast. Today, I am joined by fellow IJAH team members Adam Carroll and Cal Roberti. Gentlemen, thank you for sitting down here with me today. How long can I drag that out before you'd say hello?
Hello. Thanks for having
Great.
us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us over.
So in a little bit, this is going to be a recovery-based episode. We are not scientists. You guys aren't scientists professionally. No, closer than me.
There's a scientist in my title, but that's not the type of science.
Gotcha.
I'm an engineer, not a scientist.
Yes, I'm a computer scientist.
Great. Okay, but that being said, like we're gonna say a lot of things that are just based on. I just want to say that like we're far from like specialists in any of this.
Anything I'm saying is just off of research of what
Great.
other people have said.
Yeah, and
So
your own
no-
your own insight to it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, definitely. Just things I've looked up on the interwebs, and you can only trust that so much.
But more importantly, how has your day been? Did both of you guys work today?
Yes.
Either of you ride?
No.
Nope.
Will you
Sad.
ride later?
No, I'm going to build a shed.
Going to build a shed later. Nice for a
Get
friend.
that extra money, yeah.
Yeah, a
Little side cash,
little
shed
side
building,
cash.
yeah.
So you can spend something buy something at the
So I
Summit
can get
General
those
Store.
Santa Cruz Reserve
Yeah.
wheels, yeah.
Nice. No riding for me. I have some family coming into town, but I'll probably sneak a quick ride tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning.
We'll see.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So yeah, recovery is something that like, we talk about amongst ourselves a lot. I think a lot of athletes, professional and amateur talk about. I do think it's like a popular subject, and I think it's just becoming more and more popular. But there might be some people that don't even really know like what that means. So like, what is recovery? To me, it's an action that isn't as hard as like a regular effort, right? We're going to talk about things in like the way in like as cyclists, right? As amateur cyclists, we're going to talk about it in terms of like riding our bikes, right? But this can be said for any type of like endurance athletes, I think, right? It helps eliminate toxins in your muscles by promoting blood flow, allows your muscles to stay flexible without like overexerting them, reduces lactic acid buildup in the muscles, and it also like can help you maintain an exercise routine without going hard like every single day, right? So basically, it keeps you limber, but it isn't like super taxing, and there are many different benefits and many different ways of like approaching recovery in general, right? So like Adam, what is recovery like to you, and like when do you do it, or like how often are you focused on it?
So prior to probably looking more into it, starting Whoop, because I know that's going to come up anyways.
Yeah.
Prior to that, to me, it was just like a muscle fatigue thing. It was like, okay, I just did a race. Like this past Sunday, I did a mountain bike race. I'm like, I'm going to take it easy the next day because I just went super hard the day before.
Yeah.
Never really looked at it in a cardio sense prior, but it's kind of opened my eyes to cardio versus muscular recovery in the sense that you can be recovered in a cardio sense,
right,
but your muscles can feel like total crap.
Right. Cal, what about you? Like, what does that mean to you, and like, why is it important?
Yeah, so recovery is definitely helping you, work out again day after day. And it's really the things, I think it's the things you do after you work out that prepare you to get back on the bike or get back in the gym or do whatever you're going to do again the next day. It's things you can do to help your body recover to perform again the next time you want
Sure,
to.
like we all heard like, the protein shakes or whatever, right after you're done riding or right after you're done working out, protein or something like that.
Right, but I think I've come to find it's so much more than just
Yeah.
drinking a shake and thinking you're going to be fine the next day. There's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's very like multifaceted. Like the word recovery isn't just one thing, right? There's the difference of like passive recovery and active recovery, right? Yep. So passive recovery essentially is just resting, right? Like you're not really doing anything. Maybe you're just taking
versus
a day
a
off.
spin out ride.
Right.
Or, yeah.
And active recovery is like maybe a short spin, maybe a light walk, doing some yoga or something, right? But like, and that's even talking less specifically than like what I would consider a recovery ride, which I want to talk about in just a little bit, right? But like how often do you guys recover? Like, do you, like, Adam, are you trying to recover every week? Are you looking at it as a day thing? Are you looking at it in terms of weeks? Like, I'm going to have recovery weeks. Like,
sometimes it's weeks after like a huge load of stuff. Like for me, maybe I average 200, a little over miles a week, at least in the middle of the summer. So if I did like a 300-mile week, maybe next week I'll take it easy. Usually I kind of looked at it as like maybe a day or two on, or maybe like kind of a ramp up thing and then drop off. So like a moderate day, maybe a pretty intense workout, then a recovery ride, then kind of build it back up. It's like a sawtooth type thing if you look at it as such.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, and recently kind of what I've been looking into more with Boop and other things is sleep, which you can do recovery every single day. And that's way more important. And you also get way less than you think you do, is what I've found out.
Yeah, it is extremely complicated when we can talk about like the numbers and like what Whoop shows you, but also it can be like simple. It's just like drink water, sleep,
It definitely is, right? So I think some of what you said is what I would see is like the variations in your training load. I kind of look at recovery as things you can do day to day. So whether it be stretching, drinking water, getting enough sleep. I have an ice bath that I made that I find makes a huge difference. I made it myself. It's not that hard. I can definitely give you guys some instructions.
Couple 5-gallon buckets. No.
Chest freezer, an aquarium pump, an outlet timer. It's really not that hard. But I look at it as stuff I can do every day so that the next day I'm ready to go and I'm more recovered.
Yeah, and so it doesn't necessarily matter what you did in terms of on your bike, but you're still looking to recover to be ready the next day, no matter like what the day might bring. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So, I do certain things to try to recover. Like I said, stretching, the ice bath, drinking water. If I go for a really long ride, do a metric or something, you might not be fully recovered the next day, but they're going to help you get back to some sort of baseline.
Oh, sure.
If I go for an easier ride, I might be right back to, 100% ready to go the next day.
Will you like ride harder on the day before, knowing if you were like, oh, tomorrow's going to be a recover day for me? Will you go harder that day before, or do you keep it consistent?
I might, depending on, if I'm planning out a ride, if I know I have nothing, if I can't ride the next day, I might say, all right, we'll add some extra miles on, or, maybe I'll go for that Strava segment in town and try to take it over. So I might go harder in that sense, knowing that I'll have an extra day to recover, and also be looking forward to thinking, do I have a big ride planned for Saturday or some other big event? And how am I working up to that to make sure that I'm going to be in the right state to perform how I want to for it?
That's kind of a good point, because I know with like this coming week in Tortorodi and potential double century, like I haven't ridden this much like at this week as I would like to. And I'm kind of like, that's okay, because next week I'm going to be just completely overloaded and I'll have over 300 miles in the first 3 days of the week. So yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a recovery week.
I rode this morning. I had some people were like, they weren't like pulling off the front, but they were like riding a little bit harder. And I was like, nope, not doing that.
Your time's next week.
Not doing that right now. I'm just going to be like, I'll be almost dropped on the casual coffee ride in the swamp, because I'm not like, and that's, other people are obviously have a different day, like weekend ahead of them. Right. Yeah. And not to like timestamp this too much, but like you said, in the next 4 days, I'm going to ride like 340 miles.
Yeah.
So like today, I just took it easy.
It's like a pre-recovery.
Yeah. And like, tomorrow's, and the different rides will be different, right? I hate to make that like, this is obviously like very specific to me, but it's like 2 fundraiser rides. One's a flat road ride. It'll be, not to like say it'll be easy, because it'll be a challenge for some people, but it's a 62-mile relatively flat ride.
Relative to the 61-mile gravel, mostly off-road ride, which will be harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're doing a charity ride and you're riding with a wide variety of people. I did one last weekend with a guy who just does that one ride every year, right? And I was breaking wind at 15 miles an hour and chatting with them, and we had a great time. It was a great ride, right?
I will
and that's
pull
all
of
we
these
needed.
people around.
And that's what I did. I said, yep, come on and back. Just yell if I'm going too fast. And it was a great day. I had a ton of fun.
Yeah. But like, so like also that means that my recovery is like important to me right now. More than a lot of times,
You're forecasting your training load.
I'm trying to just like be like, so For me, I like to look at it in terms of like every day, but also weeks. Like I'll like try to like ramp up, or I actually try to like ramp up, but every week in between ramp down, depending on like what I have ahead of me, like in terms of. But I personally don't race a lot. I'm just trying to feel better about myself on the bike, really, you know. And so like having a training load of something like you were talking about earlier that sort of like ramps up, but like if I'm getting to do a 300-mile week, then maybe I'm going down to like 200 the next week, you know? And then if I get 325 the following week, then I'm going to come back down, but only down to like 250.
Yeah.
If I have the opportunity to ride that many miles.
And like the type of activity you do totally changes it, because like I did that mountain bike race last Sunday and it's pretty much 1 hour, call it was like 52 minutes or something of just all out. And that's a lot more. I needed more recovery for that hour than maybe like a few hour group ride at a more casual pace.
Yeah.
Even though the time was way less, the intensity was just way harder. And I definitely, Whoop would say it, and I also felt it the next day or two. I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty dogged from it right now.
Right. So we're all sitting here wearing Whoops. We've sort of talked about them a lot. And it's something that Whoop specifically does, but it gives you a strain score for the day. And it'll give you a strain score like at the end of the day from 0 to 21, which seems so arbitrary, and I kind of hate that.
And it's logarithmic, so that's the weird thing to get used to at first.
That is the weird thing. So you can, I think they've said theoretically you can only max out at 20.6 without like essentially having a heart attack.
I rode 117 miles last week and was 20.6. Why is it not 21? I rode 117 miles.
It's the way their formulas work. Yeah. I guess you could say it maxes out at that, but I've listened to some of their podcasts and they say there's really no way to get higher than 20.6.
Nice.
Gotcha. You'd have to be max heart rate for hours and hours and hours on end to ever get there.
Yeah.
It's a good strain week discount code.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh yeah, I sniped one of those.
So like explain logarithmic, because I know what you mean based on my experience with Whoop, but I would not know how to
explain it like I'm 5. I mean, you're an engineer, I'm a computer scientist guy. The explain it like I'm 5, I guess, would say the difference between like 1 to 5 versus 5 to 10 is not even remotely close. It's like leveling up in a video game or something like that, if you want to look at it as such.
Right. Yeah. So the difference between, I'm trying to think of how to explain this simply. Like the difference between 1 to 10 is the same as 10 to 11. Yeah. So then 10 to 20 is 10 times that. So it's
exponential.
It's exponential. Yeah. It keeps multiplying upon itself.
Yes. Right.
Because you'll probably notice, and maybe we'll dive more into it in a little bit, but like you wake up with a strain score of like 3 or 4. Like you wake up
3.5 by the time I'm on my couch, drinking coffee, and I haven't done anything but walk downstairs.
And that's like super easy, but then 5 to 6 is going to be a lot harder than that.
Right. And then at this time, we're recording this in the afternoon, and I could do the same thing that I did this morning by wake up, walk downstairs, make myself a coffee, and sit down. And it's not going to add 3.6 strain to my day.
No, you won't even register in the grand scheme of that number, especially to only one significant digit.
And also, if you're doing multiple activities, those strains don't necessarily add up for your day strain.
No, because it being logarithmic, like you said, they don't add linearly like you would expect.
Right.
12 plus 3 is not 15 in this scale. Yeah.
Right.
So there is a little bit of a learning curve there. But, I mean, I am far from intellectual. I am a creative man. But it's still, it made sense to me relatively quickly, right? That it's like, this is how it is doing your strain. So strain is something that you kind of just talked about, Adam, when you were talking about like that mountain bike race, right?
Yeah.
So the strain of that hour could be much more than the strain of a 2-hour quote unquote recovery ride.
Yeah, especially because I didn't look at what my average heart rate is. I would guess it was like a 160 or 170 for 50 minutes. Like it was a sprint pretty much. It was recovering from that is harder than maybe if I were to say I averaged 130 on a group ride for a few minutes. Definitely. When we talk about Whoop here, it's for sure it's all cardio recovery based, here, not muscular.
It is. The recovery does factor in some muscular stuff, but the strain score is. It's a proprietary formula they have that's based off how much time you spend at what percentage of your max heart rate.
Right.
That is what sets your strain.
I heard they also have kind of a tangent, another formula. They have their own caloric, because it's much lower than you see. Like when you look at the same activity, heart rate monitor, Strava is always higher, what it shows from my chest than it does for anything. And I know there's discrepancies between chest and wrist, but like they have said themselves, their formula is lower because of whatever they do with it.
Yeah, so they use, and I don't know what it's called, but whatever the most widely accepted formula is, and then they have some proprietary things they throw on it that they think makes it a little bit more accurate. But I do know, like, just from the monitor itself, they've run it against the EKGs that they use, like when people sleep, and it's within 1%. So in terms of like what you're getting from heart rate data, it is right on.
And I'll also say, oh, sorry, go on, John.
No, I've just read that like of the types of, I'm also wearing an Apple Watch. I don't always wear both, but the Apple Watch heart rate, it pales in comparison to my chest strap that I wear for my Hammerhead. But this
is
the
much
Whoop
closer.
band seems to be much, much closer.
I've definitely noticed it picks up activities quicker too than maybe even my Garmin. Like when I look at my Strava time for when I hit start on my Wahoo head unit to start a ride, and when this picked up, oh, we think you did an activity, they're like spot on generally.
They were. So what you wear on your wrist and what you wear on your chest are working differently. So if you flip over your Whoop, you see that green light.
Right.
It is using infrared to look for the blood vessels in your body expanding and contracting, which is a pretty good way of monitoring your heart rate.
Yeah.
Your chest band and the two, they
Electrodes,
have electrodes, are measuring the electrical current that's running through your body, which is
It's not
more
optical.
It's not optical, but it's a much more accurate way of recording what your heart's doing. And that's how it's recorded when you go to a hospital. That's how doctors do it. So that is much better, but it's got to be strapped right around your chest, right around your heart.
You got to lick the sensors or
they
underwater
have to be
or
wet,
something.
and you get that from the sweat while you're working out. But so that's why that is generally better, but you need something strapped around your chest all the time to do that.
Not practical for
you're
day in, day out.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't wear your... you guys don't wear your heart rate monitors all the time? Oh, good. Adam has his on.
You have yours on over there?
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing this hoodie, because it's kind of bulky to sit down in it all day. So
Yeah,
I'm
my
trying
classified government lab loves when I'm beeping red and blue on the middle of my chest all day long.
So, right, we talked about, just to take a step back, right? Active recovery is what we're going to talk about a little bit, and like why, and we can talk about the gear and stuff in just a second, but like there are also different types of active recovery, right? We're talking about on days after a strenuous activity or specifically a recovery ride, but there are ways of recovering during a ride.
Yes.
Right? So you can have a cool down at the end of a ride, and maybe you're just taking 10 minutes to like spin your legs, but like after a harder effort. Or if you're doing like intervals or like circuit training, you're like you're recovering in between the sessions of going hard. And that also has a benefit of like helping your heart active recover and then be able to spike your heart rate back up and then come back down and back up and back down.
Cover your ears. I'm about to say a word you don't like to say, which is Zwift. But
Yeah.
Zwift is very good at that in the sense of doing workouts that have a lot of active recovery where like you think you know punishment, and then when your recovery interval is like 250 watts and then you're going back up into the 300s, you definitely learn to recover in like a higher heart rate zone than you might be used to.
Deep down, I'm just afraid that I'll fall in love with the trainer and I'll
It's
never
really
want to
not
ride
that
outside
bad. You
again.
got to join the dark side.
I love the trainer, but it pales in comparison to being outside. I can only sit on it for like one TV show and then I'm bored. And
I'm like a half an
hour
hour to 45-minute trainer
Yeah.
guy versus like I could go out for 5-6 hours, maybe 14. We'll find out in a couple days. I don't know.
But
Yeah.
as soon as I can bundle myself up and ride outside, I'm right back outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely a motivation thing. I don't own a smart trainer. And maybe in 2023, if I feel like it makes sense to purchase one, like financially, maybe I will. But this year, 2022, all outside miles, baby.
And you know what's funny, kind of tie it back into it, is I end up using the trainer a lot for recovery, because sometimes I'll be like, I just did this wicked hard road effort. You know, I'm working 9 to 5, quote unquote, like earlier hours, but same deal. I'll get home and I'll be like, I don't have to kit up. You know, I live on a dirt road, so if I want to ride my tarmac, I'm not going to drive my tarmac to the park. I'm like, I'm just going to throw on bike shorts and just like sit in the basement for 30 minutes. And honestly, it can
Totally
be good
get
for
that.
recovery on that. Yeah.
Totally get that. People
You
with-
probably see my Strava all the time. I log rides like
people
that.
with kids, families,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's great time wise. You can get great workouts in. We're not sponsored by Zwift or any of the names that we're dropping in this episode, but like Zwift does serve a purpose. It just, I've also never used it. So for me to be so like against it is wrong, right? Because that's just like not the way of like seeing life. You got to at least try it before you knock it. the opposite
It
of
has
the real thing.
helped me master the active recovery spin for sure because of its convenience of walking down a flight of stairs versus driving my car to ride my tarmac.
Yeah, totally get that.
Yeah, no, I'm the
Yeah.
same, right? There are days when I drive to work in the dark and I drive home in the dark and I never see sunlight. And what else can I do besides just jump
Spin
on it in the
out.
basement and
Right.
pedal around for an hour? And whether sometimes it's interval work, sometimes it's purely just recovery. All the different. There's tons of different companies that have trainers and have programs, and
Oh, sure.
you can really do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, the
It's great.
prices are not cheap, but are remaining competitive at least.
Yeah.
Between the different brands and stuff, and yeah, but this is definitely not a Zwift podcast.
For sure.
So recovery ride, we sort of talked about, right? From what I've gathered from just listening to other podcasts or like watching YouTube videos, is like, what are to me the metrics of a recovery ride? Specifically, like ride, not just like going for a walk or doing yoga, but is like should be no longer than 2 hours, and you don't want to go above like zone 2 of your heart rate, which for me is like 141 or 142. Would you guys agree? Do you have similar opinions, different opinions than
Yeah,
that?
and sometimes I'll also try to up my cadence maybe just to get my legs moving without a lot of power. I'll try
Okay.
to see if I can get my cadence a little bit higher. I mean, maybe for certain intervals, like you can't keep 100 RPM or 105 like easily if you want to take a recovery, but sometimes just to open up the legs and get them spinning, do 100 RPMs at 150 watts. I don't know, 140 watts.
Right,
Like,
right.
yeah, I'll do stuff like that for recovery.
Are you looking at watts specifically, or are you looking at heart rate, or both?
I think heart rate is usually my driving factor, but wattage and heart rate, you do it enough where you can correlate. If I'm at this wattage, I'm probably at this heart rate. I guess that cadence and other things factor that, but yeah, I'd say priority order, heart rate, then wattage. But
If I'm outside on the bike doing a recovery ride, I have my computer just set on heart rate. And I'm riding wherever, and I'm just watching that heart rate, and I'm saying, don't let it go too high.
Yeah, I try not to break. Maybe for me personally, it's a very personal thing for your heart rate and how that is. But for me, it's like I don't want to break like 120 or 115 even for some of my recovery rides.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm right
To me,
around
that's
there.
true. Zone 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to me, zone 2 is like 122 to 142.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think I'm similar. I'm normally looking to hold it right around 120. Occasionally, it spikes to 130 and it comes right back down, but you don't want it to get too
Outside,
high.
you've got the hills. Like you have to tackle hills. Some are
if
just
I
too
go
steep.
over
You gotta stand.
142 and my little hammerhead says
Just
yellow,
Cut her off.
I
Stop
said, this
spinning.
is not a recovery ride.
And if you
Time to
stand up,
punish
God
yourself.
forbid you get out of the saddle, gone.
Gone.
Done
Yeah.
like that. Heart rate, zone 5.
Yeah. Fucking gone. I think I don't know if there are a lot of rides that I see on Strava. This is just a pet peeve that
I know what
people
you're about to say.
it's a recovery ride, and I'm not even gonna go so far as to say they went and got like a KOM, because I have seen that happen. I have seen people say they're going on a recovery ride and get a KOM, which you're not. That's not a recovery
The
ride.
master of recovery.
That's not a recovery ride.
So,
right?
so like my recovery rides. So I do the IJAH rides, right? And I'm pedaling pretty hard to not keep up with you guys, but to do the ride I can. Some of my recovery rides are 13 miles an hour.
Yeah, dude.
With some elevation added in, because people think Rhode Island's flat, but it's really not. I sometimes my average comes out 13, 14-ish miles an hour, and that's what I got to do to keep my heart rate down low.
Yeah.
It's really, really slow.
Same. I can go and just like climb a hill immediately, right? And like, so if I'm starting up a hill, nope, 12, 13, 14, no problem.
Yeah.
There's a real benefit to rides like that.
I don't. Do you guys listen to music when you ride? I know you
Yeah.
ride. Do you listen to
I
music?
do, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I'm
one
by
thing-
myself, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, same. When I'm with the group, I don't. But yeah, that was one of the things too. Like when I did a recovery and I made a playlist of like songs that were more chill, like that helped me keep it.
I listen to podcasts on my recovery
Yeah.
rides.
Oh,
Like,
I
yeah.
listen to my regular music, but I should definitely try
Yeah,
that.
because like
that
I
idea.
normally listen to like Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. Stuff that'll like get you like you want to just punch through a wall when you listen to it. Like
Yeah.
when you really want to go hard. But then I put on like Peter Gabriel on a recovery.
Wow.
Hey, In Your Eyes is a great song. You do not knock that.
That's a fine song. Your music taste is so fucking great. Like, it really is. It's just like a,
You can't go
meet
hard
people-
to Peter Gabriel.
You meet people through like riding bikes, right? And like something, not to like go off on too much of a tangent, but something that I've learned in the past like year and a half, almost 2 years of like co-founding a cycling club is like, you can have one thing in common with a person. And only one thing, and it could be riding bikes.
Yeah.
And then you like start to talk to a person, and they're like, "Oh, this person is trash," But then you meet people like you guys that are like you have a lot more in common with.
Yeah.
But then you like learn about Adam's music taste. And you're like, this guy fucking loves the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, I think
And
Brian
they're good.
was a little mad about
but Adam
that.
loves Red Hot Chili Peppers. So you're like, oh shit, Adam loves Red Hot Chili
Yeah.
Peppers. You know? It's
Yeah,
just different.
I mean, I listen to a lot of house music when I bike. That's
Hell
just
yeah.
like the
Do you?
beat. The beat is just what I need, and I can just.
Wow, we should
I can
start
go.
sharing playlists.
Right? Yeah, they'll be so different. But it's interesting. Like, we all have our thing. It sounds like where it's cool, or it's like, okay, I found that was a good thing for me. Like, tone down the music,
For sure.
like the level, because like you can't do zone 1 to Rage Against the Machine.
No.
You go into zone 5 and you listen.
My riding playlist is called Ride More. I don't
Yeah.
need to put that on a recovery
Yeah.
ride.
So,
you
like-
know? I just don't need, that's not the vibe.
So you can use some like external factors that can help force you into that mindset maybe a little bit.
I totally agree. And I just wanted to make sure that Adam, you and I have kind of talked about this before because maybe we've taken screenshots of people's rides and like shared them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And like that does kind of sound, it kind of sounds mean, right? But like it does sound mean and I guess I should be nicer. But like that's not a recovery ride. It really isn't. Like, and not to say that like it's the wrong type of ride that person should be having. Like that's not what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's like if someone else sees
Don't
that
market
ride, they
it
might
as
think
such.
that's a recovery. You know, like
If
it's
you,
just-
if I feel like if you're, and granted, I'm a very sweaty individual. If like if I'm doing a recovery ride, I am not breaking a sweat, and like
That's a good indicator.
It's a great point.
right? It is that easy of a ride. It's just and the way I think about it is just flushing out your legs, right? You're just pumping blood through your legs to
Yeah.
get the lactic acid out,
Yep,
and
right.
that's what you're trying to do. And that's kind of how I gauge it. Is if I start to break a sweat, which I can do pretty easily on a bike, I think, okay, yeah, we're going a little too hard here. Like tone it
Yeah.
back.
Now, like I think you're kind of touching on it too around that. Like Strava kind of, if you're a type of person who's susceptible to it, I mean, I can be too. I think everyone is guilty of it. Strava kind of drives that, and you like, God forbid, you show that you put in a ride where you did an average of 140 watts. Like, there's kind of
Dude.
that, like, yeah, that
it's
ego.
such bullshit that people don't comment, like give me cool comments when I fucking ride 16 miles at 14 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But if I ride a century, everyone's like, good job, good riding. But it's Strava, talked about it before. I think it has a lot of good things. It's helped connect me with a lot of like cyclists and like find places to ride and stuff. I hate to like knock on Strava, but like also who cares? They do a lot of things poorly. They could be better at things. And I think they do drive an unnecessary competitiveness.
Yeah.
Strava is not racing. It's not racing. And so like, it's okay to like, I've even heard people say like, you got to go slow to go fast, right? Recovery rides are important. If you're just going hard all the time, you're going to burn yourself out. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with a ride at 120 watts.
No, and the burnout is real. Like I definitely, before I started riding with you guys and getting more into it, when I was just riding, it was like, oh, when I go out and ride, I should just go hard all the time. That's how I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
And that is not at all the case. That's not right.
Yeah, I used to just think I should just sprint up every hill until I'm dead, and quickly realized like that is not a way to get stronger and
sustainable.
faster. It's not sustainable. You
Yeah.
can do it once in a while. You can do it once a week, but
Yeah.
if you want to ride more and if you want to ride faster and have more energy, then it's really not a good
And I
training
think
plan.
we all like just being on bikes. Like, so going slow and being on a bike is better than not being on a bike.
Right.
I mean, I like riding alone, and I like, most of the time if I'm doing a really hard ride, I'll do it by myself. I'll suffer by myself. I ride with you guys because I like to have a conversation and chit chat in the ride and say hello. And
It's kind
I
of a
don't drink
recovery.
coffee, but
yeah.
drink a coffee and have a cookie. And
Like recovery
that's why
should
I'm
be
here.
like conversational pace. Like if you're going on a nice recovery ride, you should be able to hang out and talk to people.
Oh,
do that
that's
type of
what
stuff.
I was going to say that earlier. That's a good point too. Like if you're having a hard time talking, you're probably not like recovering.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
What's up, dude?
Just listen to the new Red Hot Chili Pepper single. Anthony Kiedis, fucking his voice is it's angelic. All right, Adam.
Said no one ever, not even myself.
He does like kind of sound like a bass guitar sometimes,
He's kind of a terrible singer. He's just a good energy man.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm not knocking Red Hot Chili Peppers. They have some very good songs. I can name so many of them. They're very, very catchy. Okay, so we sort of talked about gear and brands a little bit. We've really been focusing on Whoop, but there are some other gear and brands that can help you recover. We're going to talk about like our firsthand experience with Whoop specifically and some others. Like I said earlier, this is not an ad, but you know where to find us if you want to sponsor us, Whoop or whatever. Yeah.
I'd be super down. Yeah, if
That'd be
you're listening.
awesome.
Yeah. But we are coming into this conversation, right, with our own opinions and our experience and somewhat biases, right? Because
I'm definitely biased on certain gear. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So recovery is different for different brands, right? We talked about Whoop bands. We're all wearing one. Adam, you mentioned I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I know you have, Adam, some experience wearing Garmin Phoenix or something.
Yeah, I have
like
a
that.
Phoenix. Granted, it's before they did body batteries, so what I've heard from body batteries only from friends who have it in secondhand. But I have a Phoenix 5X watch that I've had for 5 years.
Okay, explain body battery to me.
It's
Because it sounds like a porn I would search when I was like 14.
Give me a
Body battery.
Speaking of recovery, I need to take a moment from that one. No, it's just their attempt at doing something similar to kind of what Whoop's doing. You get a body battery score where it's just like the culmination of your HRV, all that stuff. They're just putting it, and that's their Whoop equivalent.
For some reason, I thought it was like human powered body battery. Like your movement is like. Listen, I told you guys I was creative. I wasn't a smart person in that way. But that's what that sounds like to me.
You put it in this perspective. It's not a recovery ride if you're powering more than 2 60-watt light bulbs.
Is that how it measures it out?
I mean, that's wattage.
Watts are watts, baby.
Yeah.
Okay. I wish that's how Whoop told you.
I won't even start talking to you
Don't.
about how
Yeah.
we convert mechanical force into watts, but it is what it is.
Okay, I have a quick question. Why does Strava tell me like my kilojoules or whatever?
That's just calories.
Calories, and that's total energy output.
Yeah.
Watts is like a how many.
Power
That's why you
output.
see the power.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah,
It's your
so-
instantaneous output. How many watts are you putting out right this second versus
Right.
kilojoules is how much power, how much energy did you output over the entire
whole
extent
thing.
of the activity.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about gear specifically, do
Yeah.
you want to start with Whoop since
Yeah,
that's
sure.
the
Let's start with
commonality between all of us
Yeah,
right
that's
now?
that
We've got a
commonality.
long time user.
Yeah, so
Cal.
I was pulling up my app. I
Oh, yeah,
joined
let's get
Whoop
our apps out.
in June 2019.
Wow.
An OG
Yeah,
before
I've had
it
it.
became cool.
Yeah, so I
Wow,
had
was
the
that a Whoop 1.0?
no, I had the 2.0, got the 3, and now have the 4. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, Adam and I are both brand new. I think Adam's had it maybe a handful of days more
Like
than me.
literally 4 more days. We're both on the 1 month like free
Right.
trial.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So I had some Nike activity tracker that now I didn't really like
Nike
it
Run
then.
Club or something. It went in the bottom of your shoe. It
I
a little
I
pod?
wasn't a runner. It was a wristband thing,
Oh,
and
okay.
it gave you some kind of score. It had nothing to do with recovery. And I found Whoop, and as an engineer, I loved Whoop because it is data heavy,
yeah.
and I just love pouring through the data and looking at every little thing. So that's what attracted me to it, and that's why I still love it now because I can really see everything and dig into it.
Yeah. Did you ever, I don't want to say regret, have you ever second guessed your subscription to Whoop? Also, are you just wearing like a standard band now? Do you have a 4.0 now? 3.0?
I have a 4.0 now.
Yeah.
I've never thought about getting rid of it. I mean, I use it all the time. I've started cycling more, I would say, in the last 2 years. But I've been a competitive Olympic weightlifter, and it's been, it's helped me with that as well with HRV, your heart rate variability.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I've loved it. The journal feature is cool. I think having it so long, it's taught me some very interesting things about recovery, and small things you can do to make big impacts. I think that's what's really cool about Whoop. I think we all know if you don't drink, if you eat like a saint, and if you sleep 10 hours a night, you're going to perform really well. But
Who has time for that?
who has time for that? I have a real job, right?
Yeah.
I'm not an Olympian that gets paid to be an athlete, right? I have a whole other life and all this other stuff. So I think Whoop has taught me a bunch of little tips and tricks that can help me recover better. And I think that's why I really like it.
But they've taught you tips and tricks because of your experience and because you're able to go back and look at your diary and see how it compares to your performance and your recovery and all of that, right?
Yeah, so the diary function helps a lot, right? And I've never written a diary in my life. I don't like writing anything down, but it's really just you're clicking buttons and you're recording information every day.
And you can
then-
tailor it to what you want to be in your own journal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of mostly yes, no questions. You put some numbers in for stuff, and you can choose what you do and don't want to answer.
Yeah.
And then they use their algorithms to say, hey, based on your daily strain, your daily recovery, when you said you did this or didn't do that, or took a multivitamin or did this kind of thing, this is how it affected your recovery. So you can look back every week, every month and go, oh, okay, when I recorded that, I took a multivitamin, it helped my recovery. Or like for me, when I recorded that I took an ice bath, my recovery was on average 7 points higher.
Wow.
So I can see things like that and understand like, oh, okay, over time, it's hard to look day to day and really figure that out. But when they give you the data, you can look at that and go, okay, that
that's
makes
a benefit of you
difference.
being a long time user, I guess, is that you have such a backlog of data to pull from and see trends. Yeah, because that's the thing. John and I, like, my trends are based off of what? 2.5 weeks. Like, it's not really a long term.
Right.
And every day it's like, how late did you consume marijuana? And I'm like, 8 p.m. Yeah, every fucking So what happens if you don't though? But that is interesting, right? Because like, what if you forget to like take your multivitamin or like take your fish oil or whatever? Like,
yeah. So it's funny. So one big thing I've learned about it, right? And we're sitting here having a brewski while we're recording.
Yeah.
But people who follow me on Strava and ride with me know I like having a beer after a ride.
No, you don't.
Never. I mean, I just
some of the coolest beer
every
cans
other
I've
ride.
ever seen in my life.
I hunt them out and I find good ones. Props to all the graphic designers that make those
beer
beer
cans look so cool.
It's like the new age art. People put a lot of effort into it. But but beer is about the worst thing you can have for recovery, right? Alcohol is a toxin. It hurts your body. Your body's constantly trying to flush it out. So one thing I learned through Whoop was not only how much you drink affects your recovery, but how long before you go to sleep do you drink and how that affects your recovery.
Just to be clear, we're advocating for day drinking, right? Is what this is about to turn into.
I was slowly leading into it. But
finish drinking by 5 p.m., but start at 10 a.m.
Yeah, right. So your body, right, your liver, it takes time to process alcohol and get it out of your system. While your liver is doing that, essentially your heart is pumping blood to your liver, allowing your liver to process the alcohol. So if you have a drink and then go to sleep, your body is not really resting because your heart is pumping blood to your liver to process that alcohol, even though you're not awake. So the earlier you stop drinking, the better your recovery is the next day.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So, I'll have one right after I'm done riding or two, right?
Yeah.
And I can have one or two, in the late afternoon, early evening. And if I stop by 6-ish, I find it doesn't have a huge effect on my recovery. But if I have one after dinner at 8:30, it has a much bigger effect.
Gotcha.
And I'm saying like on the Whoop recovery percentage, it can be 10 to 15 points
That's
on average.
significant.
It really is significant. So, depending on when you get off the bike, that's when I'm going to have one. But say you're not biking that day and you're just having a drink with dinner, you might want to think about having it before dinner, vice after dinner. And that difference in an hour or two can make a huge difference in your recovery score.
Interesting.
And it's made a difference for me. Now that I know that, I can, change my behavior. I'm still going to have the beer or two, but
hell yeah.
I have it a couple hours earlier and it makes a big difference. And I feel better the next day and I can, I can train harder the next day.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah. For me, the one thing, because again, this is coming from a 2.5 week user, so I'm only going day to day. The one thing I've definitely noticed, recovery is better when I have melatonin. For sure. That's a personal thing. I know that might change for other people, but sometimes I was like,
with my dreams, man.
Yeah.
It
Makes my dreams
definitely
crazy.
makes you have crazy dreams, but I've gotten my best recovery scores after having melatonin.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I take magnesium before I sleep, which helps relax your nervous system, which also helps you recover better. But that's another thing you can track in Whoop. Did you take it or did you not?
Oh, two things I don't take.
And I can use that. Yeah.
Get a start.
Yeah. Specifically, if you've ever had anybody tell you twitch in your sleep, I don't know if you guys have.
No, so people tell you that often?
John's sad and alone, so he wouldn't have anyone to tell him.
What the hell? I'm married. I'm wearing a wedding ring.
I was going to say, I'm married. Maybe you don't. But my wife did tell her early on. She's like, right after you go to sleep, you twitch. And I started looking into it. And it's your nervous system that can't relax.
No, my wife and I sleep in separate rooms.
Oh, okay.
So it's a long. Yeah.
So it's just magnesium is something that helps your nervous system recover and relax. So,
Interesting.
It's just something I take.
And no
at
more
night.
twitching?
No more twitching.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
I actually used to like twitch myself awake sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. As I was like going to sleep.
That's like borderline night terror.
Yeah, it wasn't night terrors, and it
You
was
know?
right. It was. My wife said it was right when I was going to sleep,
Wow.
and I hit the pillow and fall asleep. But
I will say one thing that Whoop really seems to track well, before we diverge into what other systems we've used, they have a very good sleep breakdown in their
Yes.
app in their app in general, if you want to look at it like that. From the computer science aspect, like it's pretty user friendly. I dig it in that sense.
I totally agree, right? Again, as an engineer, I just give me every little bit of data I can get my hands on, and Whoop does all the analysis for you, but I can at least see the data behind it and understand it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the breakdown between not only light and deep sleep, but slow wave and all the different things. And Whoop will tell you about what all those things do and how it affects your body, and it's really interesting.
And I've definitely tried to, like, whether it happens or not, I've thought of the recovery score, and I've consciously tried to be like, even if I might not be going to sleep right away, like maybe I lay down a little bit earlier in bed in the chance that I go to sleep a tiny bit earlier. Like so it's definitely changed a couple habits for me in the couple weeks that I've had it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely changed habits for me over the couple years I've had it. And like I said, it hasn't radically changed my life. I think I know things I could do to make me a much superior athlete.
You're consciously aware of it,
but
though,
there
now.
are little things I can do within the constraints of having a job and riding a bike and doing other activities, the little things I can do to make a bigger change.
I think Noah maybe mentioned it when we talked about Whoop, because I asked him and Brian about it, because at that time they were the only users I knew. But yeah, like it's good to know the numbers. Like you don't want it to drive your life and be like, I'm not going to enjoy beer ever because of Whoop. But it's good to know, like you said, you found out your constraints, you found out your timetable for that and stuff. So I guess it's done something,
Right.
in that
And
sense, yeah.
I mean, if you wake up and your recovery score is in the red, it doesn't mean you can't go on a bike ride. It just means, you're not going to be...
Maybe you should take it a little easier.
You're not going to be operating at 100%. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just throwing numbers out there. And maybe you'll be at 80%, which is still fine and still good enough to go for a ride. It just means you're not going to be, at the top of your game.
Yeah, and it might mean that your recovery the next day probably won't be in the green, right? But like you can continue. It still shows you the pattern, even if it's a destructive pattern. It's showing you that you're continuing a destructive pattern. It's not, that's the thing. Like it's still up to you as the user. It's what you do with this information, right? And like even on a day like this morning, I woke up, my recovery was quite high. I want to say it was like 97 or something.
That's really high.
That's really good.
I didn't decide to push it.
Yeah.
I decided to just like take it relatively easy.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean like if you see a 97, you need to go harder. If you see a 5, you need to do nothing. But like it just helps sort of inform what makes you get a 97 or what makes you have a 5 in the morning.
Absolutely. So to kind of relate it directly to cycling.
Yeah.
So if we're going on an IJAH ride and I'm in a green the night before, I will take it upon myself to sit in the front a little bit more, break some more wind, right? I'll spend some more time up there. If I'm in the yellow or in the red, I might spend a little bit more time back in the pack, that group. That's just kind of how that's what it would do to me in terms of I'm still going on the ride, but it just makes that little difference in how I'm approaching the ride and what I'm doing that day.
Yeah. And like, it can also like, so we're basically talking about, Adam, you sort of spoke about it earlier, muscular versus like cardiovascular recovery, right? But like, have either of you experienced, and Cal maybe more so because you've used it longer, but like, have you experienced a high day in your recovery percentage, but still been like, oh, my legs are trash?
On right now today a little bit. I have a pretty high recovery score. It was like 84, which I brought it back up over the past couple of days of just trying to sleep more. But like I could probably go out and ride a hard ride, but like right now when I'm touching my legs, I'm like, oh, they're a little bit tender from yesterday's ride. Like I don't feel 100%. I wouldn't want to go out and knock out a 100-mile ride this minute. But my recovery score is really high because I didn't go super long and super hard yesterday. But it's first time riding my tarmac in a while, different seating position, whatever, something with the muscles that just like,
Oh, you switch your seat? Did you switch your saddle position?
no, I've just been riding my mountain bike a lot lately more. So yeah, so something about it. My legs are a little more sore than they might normally be for only like an 18-mile ride, but my recovery score is really high. So
Yeah, nice. There's Harry.
I'm pretty in line with my recovery score, but the recovery score is your resting heart rate and your heart rate variability. And
HRV is the biggest one, right? They say they weight
they weight it more, and I think HRV is more of an indicator. So HRV is measuring your nervous system. The variability in your heart rate has to do with the sympathetic and parasympathetic. You can go look all this up on your own. I can't explain it that well, but it has to do with how your nervous system is telling your body and your heart to pump blood out to you, which is coming from your muscles and your skeletal system. So the higher your HRV is, the less of a demand because it's more relaxed. So I notice how my body feels is more in line with what my HRV is than necessarily my total recovery score. And after having it for a long time, I know what my absolute high is. I know what a low is, an average. And it tends to be pretty in line with that. And I mean, we were talking earlier, based on recovery, there are things I can do, stretching in the ice bath that will make muscles feel okay or not okay. Yeah. And it can also be different than actually getting on the bike. And after you're riding for an hour, how do you feel?
Yeah. I've definitely started taking, especially after a hard workout. I don't have an ice bath, but I've taken colder showers immediately after a workout. I've tried that recently. That helps a little bit too.
It does help. I'll say the ice bath is not as painful or discomforting as the shower. And maybe it's just because you're sitting and you're sitting still, but
yeah,
I know people do that.
You ease yourself into it.
You ease yourself into it and you sit very, very still. When you're getting sprayed with cold water, it's
standing there miserably, just letting
I end every shower like ice cold. And, there's always like 10 seconds of contemplation and convincing myself that this is good for me when it goes from, relatively warm to cold.
And to be an engineer, right? Getting sprayed with water that's moving off you and moving away, you're not getting the same heat transfer as sitting in a full bath of it.
When you get that little insulation layer of where it's a little bit of a warmer temperature.
I mean, there's obviously benefits from a cold shower, but sitting in a bath, in a full tub, the heat sink is a much greater effect, and it's sucking more heat out of you. It's making your body respond to the cold better, forcing blood out into your capillaries, all the good stuff.
Sure. Wim Hof, are you familiar?
I am.
Yeah, what a guy. Could do a whole podcast just on the Wim Hof method.
He's crazy.
But he's the reason why I take cold showers.
Yeah, he's the reason why I take ice baths. If you look into the stuff he does, that is
Adam,
absolutely
are you familiar
wild.
at all?
I'm not.
A little homework. Wim Hof. Two words. That's his name. WIM space HOF. And he's a super interesting guy. And he walks around barefoot in the snow, 18 inches of snow, and has no problem with it.
The ultimate ice bath.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But no, I mean, I think it does two things. The ice bath is obviously lowers inflammation, in your joints and everything. And then
I wish it would lower inflation.
I know, right? That'd be nice right now. And then in your muscles, right? The cold water, it forces blood out into all your muscles, which helps circulate the lactic acid out without actually exercising them. But yeah.
So Adam, are you still using a Garmin at all to track your recovery right now? But no, right?
Mine never really was a recovery tracker.
Gotcha.
It's more just, I guess, projecting on what the newer Garmins do from what I have gathered in people I know versus what Whoop does. And they seem to do similar things. I can't give you a comparison direct to direct, but it's pretty much the way I look at it as, do you want the subscription or do you want the all-out purchase price?
Right.
Garmin does come with some other features. And this is maybe where I'm a little bit biased because I got my Garmin when I was hiking, and if you want just there's one of the pros and cons I made a list of pros and cons of Whoop when I was in my notes, and a pro and a con I wrote was that it has no screen. It's both a pro and a con.
It is a pro and a con.
Yeah.
It would be. So
it should just have a little screen that shows the time or something.
Yeah. So I have a watch on, right? And I surf too, so I have the tides and everything on here, which is nice. But I would love if I just had the time.
Someone's like, what time is it? I'm like,
so the reason they don't do it is a little LED screen like that would kill the battery.
Yeah, the battery life is great.
The battery life's fantastic. It's I get normally 5-ish days out of it. And from what I've read from Whoop, they've said a clock would cut that in half, if not more.
I believe the one thing I will say that it's a pro is it's not distracting. If you want to look at it in that perspective, if you're only wearing it, it's not distracting. Right. It's just a thing. It lives on you. It's whatever.
But a clock and a heart rate right next to it would be very nice mid-ride.
No, this is my slight bias of knowing it. Garmin's battery life is insane. I mean, it's a clunkier device, but if you're just in standby mode and you're not tracking activities, this is my Phoenix 5X that I've had for 5 years this December. I'll still get 2.5 weeks on a standby mode.
But like you said, it's 2 or 3 times bigger.
It's a lot bigger. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's uncomfortable, but it's not nearly as comfortable as Whoop, and that's one thing I will give this 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Whoop is forgettable.
Whoop is forgettable. And I will say, so I've had 3 of them now. I had the 2, the 3, and now the 4. The 4 is volume-wise, I think 2/3 or almost half of the 3. But they maintain the same battery
It's
life.
like barely a wristband. It's just
So they could make it bigger and make it last longer. But one of the things they were going for was making it more forgettable, making it smaller. Yeah. I have to wear a button-down shirt at work, and I can just snap a sleeve right over it, and I don't even
problem.
notice
That's definitely
it's
a thing
there.
with the Garmin, that you have to get over. And then the pro I would look at too is if I'm coming from hiking, I wanted a standalone GPS, which is why I got Garmin. So I was like, okay, I can literally have I've gone over 24 hours of GPS activity tracking with my Garmin out in the woods, and it's bailed me out a couple times, honestly, with trails when you get a little bit off and you're into more bushwhacking stuff. Yeah. So like from that perspective, I guess it would be dependent on what you're looking for. If you don't care about that stuff and you're just doing cycling, running, you're gonna have your phone on you. Yeah, I can see Whoop being awesome, man. You get the free hardware updates. Yeah.
So I think if you plan on using it for a long time, I think that's what's nice about Whoop is that when they come out with some fancy new thing, right, you're just paying your monthly price and you just get it. They ship. You don't have to do. I'm trying to think. No, I did have to.
Old one.
I did have to go in and say I wanted the new one, but it was quick and easy, and then they just shipped me the new one. You don't have to return the old one. If you can get somebody else to use it, they'll give you credits and free months. So if you can, expand Whoop, they'll do it that way. But no, they don't even make you send your old one back. Mine's still sitting on my desk.
Wow.
Yeah. That is the nice thing. And Garmin's probably more expensive if you extrapolate out how long you're going to have it versus at this point. Like I paid $600 for my Phoenix 5X 5 years ago. I've got my money's worth out of it. I still wear it. The new Phoenix 7X with the Sapphire and the solar, which mine was the Sapphire and no solar at that point.
What does Sapphire mean?
It's their screen. It's their like impact resistant.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So for hiking, I've like hit it off rocks and it's totally fine and stuff. Like that's $900+ now. Wow. So you got to figure if you buy that, you got to say that to make it equal to Whoop, I'm going to have that for 5 years or something, 6 years, and before I buy a new one to make that price kind of work out in your favor.
So is that, you said solar, does it totally charge itself or do you still have to plug it in?
I believe it will
sometime?
charge if it's not on, but it's more of a battery extender versus anything. Right. It's not enough to keep it going entirely. You would still plug it in as a normal watch.
Right. So I think one of the other nice things about Whoop is that it has a battery that clips on. You don't have to take it off.
Right.
And with the 4.0, the battery itself is waterproof. Yeah. So the battery used to not be waterproof on the 3, and now it is waterproof. Yeah. So you can really just throw it on whenever and do whatever. But I mean, I obviously in the shower, surfing, I've taken this thing everywhere and haven't had a
Do you ever take it off?
No.
I only because I'm on the trial, I take it off when I shower because I'm like, I don't want to break this thing if I'm going to send it back maybe in a week or two.
I shower, I fish a lot, I get fish guts in it, it washes right out. Like I just never take it off.
Yeah, I only take it off to shower, but I just never thought to continue to wear it in the shower.
Yeah, but that was something where there was a period where I take my Garmin off now, but I was wearing it like 24/7 in everything and whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the new one to watch too, which I guess we don't have data because it's not really available commercially yet, is the new Apple Watch Ultra. They're trying to get into the game with it.
Yeah, but they still didn't add the same type of sensors that Whoop has.
No.
And so to me, that was the big difference. So like I was previously using this app called Athletic, ATHLYTIC, some awful 2022 app name where they put a Y in the middle somewhere, and it was supposed to track recovery, much like a Whoop. The numbers that I would get on my Athletic app are drastically different than the numbers from Whoop in terms of specifically my HRV. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm talking 50 to 100 points different.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's a lot.
And so that is because of the sensors that the Apple Watch had. Now, the Apple Watch Ultra is slightly updating the sensors. I wear an Apple Watch 6 now, which I think is slightly out of date. They might have been on like the 7 or the 8. I think the 8 is like, I think the Ultra is like a version of the 8.
It's the upgraded 8, yeah.
Yeah. But it's still, and it's like more crash resistant, right? I think they do make one that like you could smash on a rock and like it wouldn't break. Yeah. That's part of like this higher price tag. But still, to me, it doesn't seem to have the sensors. So I'm not quick to turn in my slightly older watch to get an 8 and ditch the Whoop. I think I'm going to stick with the Whoop. I
think that's probably for you. That's probably the best play. Yeah.
I haven't looked. I've looked at the Apple Watch recovery stuff a little bit, and it seems a little similar to Whoop, but I haven't been that impressed with it. And like I said, being an engineering data type,
the
amount of stuff
native to Apple falls so short. The third-party apps like Athletic still falls short, and they're third-party apps. So it really like isn't. It's just not the best, you know.
Yeah. And I will say, right, Whoop. There are a lot of professional athletes across all sports. The big four, as well as endurance, triathletes, cyclists, runners that use it.
I guess,
and
how did
live
you
by
get into it? That's a good.
and swear by it. How did I get into it? That's a really good question. I'd have to think back. Whoop used to market really heavy on a lot of podcasts, and that's when I might have, because I was looking for activity trackers, and I was looking at everything on the market, and I had seen them, and when I looked at it all, I said, all right, let's go with this one. It seems to, like I said, provide the most data, which is what I was looking for. And I think that's how I eventually picked it and stuck with it.
There are some other brands. Have you guys heard of the Aura Ring?
I have.
It's like basically,
I haven't looked into it too much, but I've heard
more
of it.
sleep focused, I guess. You wear it like a ring, as if you couldn't guess based on the name. But they're sort of trying to go more in the recovery route, even though it was like I think originally for sleep tracking specifically, which the Whoop does a great job of just sleep tracking itself. You know, so
right, it does do a great job. I mean, I got married about a year ago, and before then, I'd never worn any jewelry, so that probably would have told me I don't want to wear a ring. Vice the Whoop band, which is more like a watch, was more I think why. Aura Ring wasn't around when I got the Whoop, but I think I probably would have looked at that before wearing a wedding band and said, I don't like wearing rings. I don't want to wear one.
That's funny because
now it just sits on.
I just got engaged and I was talking to my fiance about that. I'm like, I don't know if I can wear a ring. I've never worn one before. I'm like, maybe I'll wear it as a necklace. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
2 days later, I totally forgot about it. Knew I
the
was married.
marriage.
Forgot that the thing was hanging off my finger. It doesn't bother me at all.
You're going to cut that part out, right?
Yeah, I'll leave it that. I'll just bleep that part.
That's funny. It's all right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm the same. Like, I probably didn't. No, like I would. I'm a man that paints his nails, so I would probably. I owned rings before I owned a wedding ring, but I wear a wedding ring much more consistently. But still, I forget it. Like. I forget it more than I forget my Whoop. I'll tell you that.
I'd be curious. I mean, I think I had somebody do a really good job at sizing it so that it's comfortable and it's smaller than I would have thought. I'd be a little more.
Do you wear it while riding?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I do not.
Oh, I never take it off.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's smaller than what I would have put on, and they taught me how to take it on and off. I was afraid it was going to get stuck, but I would be, I guess, concerned just buying a quote unquote ring size online and just hoping it fit right.
Yep. Yeah, that's a way more particular than an adjustable, like a watch or something.
Yeah, well,
like
the
that.
watch you can adjust, but that Aura Ring, it comes and that's the one size you got. And I mean, the differences between ring sizes and all the half sizes is very minute.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I put on, one size, a half size bigger, a half size smaller. I kept jumping around until we found the right one. So if you know what your size is, you're probably good, but I would be a little concerned.
I definitely have a harder time getting behind the ring versus like a wrist wearable. And Whoop has like the armbands and other accessories if you want to wear it on different parts of your body.
Ask, have you ever messed with any of those?
No, I've looked at them all. I've thought about like the bicep band,
right? Just
not having to have it on your wrist, but no, I've just left it there all the time.
Because like we're wearing them around our wrist, but the Whoop itself is just its own little unit with the sensors, and it can come out of this band and be clipped into underwear, like you said, wristbands. There's a heart rate style monitor that goes around the chest. I think there's
a chest strap, a bicep strapped, and then bras, like boxer briefs. Yeah. They have clothing now that you can put them in, and it'll take the reading.
Right, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Will I mess with any of those? Probably not. I don't mind wearing the band.
No.
And as long as it's accurate enough. If they were to tell me, even if they were to tell me that like wearing it around my chest would make it 20% more accurate, I still don't think I'd do that all the time.
Day in and day out, that's a little more difficult. Like when I'm on a ride, I forget about the chest thing, but you're also worrying about, staying up with the group versus the chest strap.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So I think about that, right? When you have a Whoop and you look at your resting heart rate and your resting heart rate and your heart rate variability, it's all about you, right? It's not to have a competition to say I have a better heart resting. No. It's not about that. It's about knowing what your baseline is and knowing, how things change up and down from that. So you might get a little better read on what your true heart rate is when you're getting it from your chest. But if it's all on your wrist, if it's all proportional all the time, I think you're still getting the same use out of it. Is it more? Is it less? And that's really what you need to know know what's going on with your body.
So using it for 2 years greatly outweighs using it for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, did Whoop tell you like you have to wait a month for the data to be a little more reliable? Like your recovery scores?
Like it was grayed out for a few days. I have recovery scores now. I have the sleep coach, which I got to say, I already went to, they had a little webinar of like how to use your Whoop. I attended it. They have like good coaching and
They
stuff.
do.
I will say they definitely have a good presence in there. So
their marketing is good. Their UI is sleek.
yeah.
their podcast, I listen to every episode that comes out. Some is just interviewing a professional athlete. It's interesting to hear how they use it. Some of it is interviewing real doctors and real scientists that have published papers on this stuff that are explaining to you how it all works.
Yeah.
That is, again, as the
have a
engineer,
good
as a data
community.
nerd, I like hearing a doctor be like, we did these studies and and just go in depth about it. It's really interesting.
So there's some stuff that was unlocked like that. Like the first few days, it's gathering data. So your recovery scores, well, they give you a score, it's grayed out because it's just, they try to tell you it's meaningless. But then when you go into it now, you have green, yellow, red, you have sleep coach stuff. You unlock, like I've unlocked the haptic alarm now and stuff, which is a nice upgrade from the 4 that I guess the 3 didn't have. The haptic alarm is cool. Yep.
Yeah, the fuck, what the fuck was I just gonna say? I opened the app and I totally forgot. What were you just saying?
Haptic alarm, Whoop 4.0,
Ah, damn it. Wow.
recovery score grayed
Great.
out.
Oh, yes, no. So there's one thing that's still grayed out for me, and it is complete to complete the begin your Whoop journey, you need to have a 14 nights of sleep to unlock your monthly progress. Before that, there were certain things that like would and wouldn't unlock. Like Adam said, you needed 4 nights before your sleep performance could be analyzed. And then your first week in review. Like there's different like checkpoints to quote unquote begin your Whoop journey. And yeah, that's the last one. I like the haptic alarm. A thing that I still wear my watch for is an app called Sleep Cycle, which is really good at gauging what type of sleep that you're in and waking you up at the right time. So if you want to wake up by 5 o'clock, it gives you like a half-hour window before that alarm, and based on what type of sleep that you're in, it catches you in your light sleep.
I think
in order
Whoop
to
does
wake
that
you
too,
up.
right? The 4.0?
I'm not sure. It might. I've never played around with that.
I'm pretty sure it does because like I set that I wanted to just perform, which is 85% or whatever they say. And it said, I set my max alarm is, cover your ears, 4:30 for my latest wake up time.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we'll wake you up between 3:30 and 4:30 when you've hit 85%.
okay.
You need to be connected to your phone though. So you need to make sure that this and your phone battery lasts during the night, because if not, it says it will default back to just the normal, your latest time haptic alarm, which would be 4:30 for me.
Yeah, I don't like a hard alarm. I like a soft alarm time so that it's like eases you into it.
Well, that
If I
being
get
said,
woken up deep sleep, it's no good.
I've never been woken up before my end alarm time at 85% score, which is what I
Gotcha.
have it generally set to. Just to
Right.
get, I've been messing around with it. You know, it's a trial. I've been messing around
Right,
with
that's
it.
the sleep coach thing you're talking about. You can
Yes.
say you want to just get by, you want to perform, or you want to peak, and it'll tell you how long you should sleep based on what you want to do the
Let me
next
tell
day.
you, if you want to peak, we should already be asleep for tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we get out of here? I think there's probably a lot more that we could talk about, but I don't know. I think we covered a good amount of it just based on our experience and like why we think recovery is important, and yeah, maybe how to recover if you've never done it before.
Maybe a parting note that I'll say, because I'm still like, do I keep Whoop? Do I not? I'm undecided, but I will say if you can get the deal where you get someone to refer you and you get the free month trial for the shipping cost of $8, absolutely I would try it again. Like, I'm very much enjoying the data. I will make my determination in a week or two, but I would go for that trial all day long for $8 shipping.
Yeah, I can give people referral codes. So if anybody's
we all
interested,
have them, right?
Okay. Yeah, it should be the same. So
If you want to get your boy another month.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's how it works, I'll give you guys a code. But yeah, and if anybody have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Like I said, I've had it for 3-ish years now, and I love it, and I can tell you all the good stuff and some bad stuff about it. But
And we have a team, we have a club thing.
Yes,
on
we do.
Whoop.
And I got your message on it. So that also works in the app.
Yeah, wow. Whoop has messaging. Strava doesn't. Step it up, Strava.
And I got to say, I took my referral code because before you guys did it, I got it a few days earlier. So I took mine from Phil Guyman. So shout out to Phil if you want to.
My God.
If you want to come meet me
Whoever's
again, you know,
editing
we
this.
met one time in California, so I'm sure you remember me.
We need another podcast to name drop the Cookie Monster himself. No, but that ride that you did with him seemed really cool.
he was a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, it seemed really cool.
We chatted about normal people things. He was pretty cool.
Yeah, hell yeah. That sounds like a great experience. Yeah. All right, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Maybe let's do a follow up in about 6 months. Maybe we can get a couple other Whoop members, and we have 6 months worth of data, a winter of you two riding Zwift.
No, I think that'd be great because you are so far ahead, Cal, in
Yeah.
your Whoop journey that I think it'd be great to see how people compare, whether I stick with it or I don't. If you
Right.
stick with it, I
Maybe
think it's a
someone
good to have a
uses
follow-up.
Cal's code and
Yeah.
jumps on now.
Yeah.
They can come on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool.
But yeah, no, I would agree. We should definitely do it in 6 months. I think if you use the journal and it's not journaling, it's clicking yes or
it's
no.
checkboxing. It's
It
saying
literally
I took fish
takes me
oil.
30 seconds
Yeah.
to do in the morning.
Stressful
It's
day,
so
yes or
easy.
no. It's easy stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you have a dog in the room when you slept, which I have, which is yes every
That's-
single night?
It's unbelievable when you look at your monthly assessment, what it tells you for pluses and minuses of how it affects your
I
recovery
can't wait
score.
to see that.
It's-
I'm very
it's
excited.
very
to see that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And even we have like people that we ride with all the time. Like you mentioned Noah and Brian. They use one all the time. It'd be great to get other people's perspective. Some other people that are in the.
Because I think Brian's been on it for a year and Noah's probably similar or more.
I
would
don't
think.
know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's very interesting, and I think recovery, it all depends on what type of riding you're trying to do. But like, you don't even need to be like someone that rides as much as me or rides as much as like anyone that's interested in riding to like for your recovery to be important. I don't think like you maybe someone that isn't working out all the time. It doesn't make sense for them to own a Whoop, but I still think it's like valuable information.
It's definitely a very athlete focused
Yes.
device. Like
For sure.
For sure. Like I think you gotta mentally say like, I'm committing to try to be the best form of myself or perform better to have a Whoop. It might fall short on someone who just wants a
I don't
sleep
think people who
tracker.
don't like bikes are listening to this podcast.
No, exactly.
It'd be weird if you hate cyclists and you listen to this podcast, send me an email.
This is just ammunition.
It's justahill.com. Send me an email.
We'll send you a free hat.
Yeah, I'll send you a free hat and a free t-shirt. Send me an email, and you have to convince me that you hate cyclists, but you still listen to like an hour and 15 minutes into a podcast about
From some
recovery.
random dudes in Rhode Island.
The only caveat I'll add to that is, I think we all bike a lot and we're pretty active. But even if you're not as active as we are, if you're still just trying to be better and improve your health, it still can.
I think it's
can
all
give
about
that to
improvement. Yeah, you're saying it's a root
Absolutely.
cause. If you just
Absolutely.
want to say, I want to track some metrics, but I'm not going to do anything with it, well, then, maybe it'll fall short. Like, then go some other route. But like, I'm using this data to aggregate this data to say, I want to see what I can tweak in my life to make myself better. So, yeah.
Really funny to have a Whoop and never to look. Never to look at it, really.
I just paid the subscription, whatever.
97%. What does that mean? Okay.
That and my World of Warcraft, they just go out the same time.
Are you still paying for cable? Are you still paying for your Whoop? It's like some shitty ad on YouTube. All right. Thank you guys both very much. I think that was a great episode. And catch you on the next one. Bye.
Later.
See ya.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.